Good morning. May you all please rise as we have the Shupe family make their entrance. Thank you. Y'all may be seated. On behalf of the Shupe family and all who loved and served with Paul, I want to welcome each of you here today, his family, his friends, his brothers and sisters of the fire service community, and the many dignitaries and community leaders that we have joining us here today. Those include City Manager Scott Butler, the City Manager Ken Cost, Mesa Mayor Mark Freeman, Vice Mayor Scott Summers, Council members Julie Spilsbury and Jen Duff. We also recognize the State President of the Professional Firefighters Association, Dan Freeberg, who have each gathered to honor the life of firefighter paramedic Paul Shupe. We come together in this sacred setting with hearts both heavy and full of gratitude to pay tribute to a man whose life was defined by courage, compassion, and unwavering service. To the Shupe family, to Nancy, thank you for sharing Paul with the City of Mesa Fire and Medical Department and the surrounding communities. Today we stand beside you in your sorrow and surround you with respect, admiration, and love. To his fellow firefighters and paramedics, thank you for being here in uniform, in strength, and in solidarity. This unified manner is so important in these trying times. Paul's life and legacy have blessed this community in ways that will endure for generations. This morning we will remember, we will mourn, and we will celebrate a life lived with honor, a life of quiet confidence, gentle healing, and steadfast courage that will never be forgotten. We now invite you to join us in a spirit of reverence and reflection as we begin this service. I invite each of you to rise as the Mesa Fire and Medical Department Honor Guard presents and posts the colors. You may all be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, family, friends, and fellow public servants, I just express my appreciation and gratitude for each of you being here with us today, especially at this sacred moment. As we recognize the diverse faiths that are gathered here today to honor Paul Shupe, I invite each of us in our own faith or quiet reflection, in a spirit of unity and reverence, to join now in a moment of prayer, reflection, and healing that will be offered by Jim Stock.
Our beloved Father in heaven, as we come before thee this day to honor and remember Paul Shupe, beloved son, husband, father, grandfather, and friend, we are grateful for the time that we had with him. We are grateful in our knowledge of salvation and the opportunity that Nancy and Paul and their family will be able to be an eternal family. We are grateful for all those who will participate in this program today. We ask a blessing upon them. We also ask a blessing upon Paul's family, Nancy and the boys and Bailey. Help them to have the knowledge that they will see their father again. We are grateful for all those first responders that are here today honoring Paul. Please bless them with health and safety. Father, we pray for these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you. We'll first be pleased to hear some remarks by the Mesa Fire and Medical Department Fire Chief, Chief Mary Camelli. Chief Camelli will then be followed by the Mesa Mesa Mayor Mark Freeman. Chief Camelli.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here for our brother Paul. It means so much. Nancy, Gilbert, Andrew, Bailey, Gabriel, Mr. and Mrs. Shupe, Paul's brothers and sisters, nieces and nephews, grandkids, and the whole extended family. I want you to know our hearts go out to each and every one of you. I know Paul loved his family so much, and we all loved him as well. So thank you for sharing him with us for the years that we had him. I want to say that Paul was an extraordinary man who exhibited immense strength and resilience up to his last moments. Even as he faced his own challenges, he and Nancy really found ways to uplift others during this time too. One example is when we were planning our brother Mark Keller's services, they wanted to know what they can do to help. And it was suggested that the Shupes make very good cookies. And so what their job was, we said, if you want to make cookies, and they sure made cookies. They made hundreds of cookies. They delivered them to the service. And not only did they feed those who were hungry, but the joy and warmth that spread across everyone who was there, because that's a gesture of truly embodying the spirit of selfless support and compassion. We were so grateful for that. On August 18th, many joined together to arrange Paul to be at the Phoenix Raceway to get driven around the track. And Paul kept saying on that day, he said, never in his wildest dreams did he wake up that morning thinking he was going to be on a helicopter, getting a ride to the West Valley, then being driven to the racetrack and being driven around that track. He said that while we were there, and the whole time Paul was there, when he was talking to the media and everyone else, he's talking about wellness and safety and all of those things. While he was going through what he was going through, he was still sending a message to everyone during that time as well. As Paul was our driver safety instructor, and safety was always on the forefront for Paul. And his goal and his job, one of his jobs was to ensure that everybody that was required to have driver-operator certification received it, and they had to get it every 3 years. Paul said this was very manageable to get everybody through. He said the challenge was when they didn't pass the first time and he had to reschedule them the second time. So I'm going to put a shout out for Paul here moving forward with this program. Anyone going through this program in the future, because Paul said it takes a little preparation to pass it. You pass it the first time, you're going to be getting a smile and a nod from Paul up above, and that you don't have to come back and take it a second time. So Paul will be paying attention to this very, very closely. Just when you think you know somebody, new revelations surface. Every time I visited Paul during this journey, I learned something new about Paul from his family, one thing or another. First of all, Paul was an exceptional piano player. I mean, they own a baby grand piano, and you have to be pretty talented to have a baby grand in your house. In his teens, he was a clothing model for Dillard's. He was the director of an art gallery where he showcased very expensive art, bronze statues and everything. I mean, this was very expensive stuff. He had a bartender certification that many didn't know about. And also, Nancy told us there's an apartment on their house that Paul built, but he built it for their father-in-law. And he designed it in such a way that his father-in-law had to walk through the house to get to his own apartment. And that was intentional because he wanted his grandkids to get to know their grandpa. And Nancy confirmed that this strategy worked. But also in this endeavor, Andrew, hanging out with his grandpa often, really learned how to play Texas Hold'em at 8 years old and got really good at it. I don't know if that was Paul's intention, but Andrew benefited from it. But the intention of everyone being close worked, and it was all because of how Paul designed that. Nancy and the kids, we are so grateful that you shared your husband, your father with us for 23 years. We all wish we could have enjoyed more time with him. While we'll never fully understand why things happen as they do, I believe God has a different path for Paul right now. And now he's resting in a better place and absolutely still advocating for health and wellness and safety through his days. This past year, after being diagnosed with glioblastoma, Paul remained incredibly positive throughout this journey, and his kids will tell you and his family will tell you that, showing gratitude for everything. One night, when I was visiting him in Scottsdale Osborne, just a week or so before he passed, I was reading the entries that were written. We have a 125-year history book, and many of our folks wrote in there, wrote comments to Paul. I was reading him the entries, and then I would say the name of who wrote it. And after each entry I read, Paul would be saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. He was thanking the people that wrote these kind things, even in his time of need. And his kind words and gratitude showed through. We're so fortunate that we have the opportunity to know Paul. His kindness and genuine care for others have left a deep imprint on our hearts and will be there for a long, long time. Today, I like to think that he's watching over his family and friends healthy and whole. Paul would want everyone to continue taking steps to mitigate risks as we go through our daily jobs. We know the inherent risks, but he would want us to continue doing that, and we will continue doing that in his honor. Thank you, Paul, for being the wonderful person you are. Your impact and kindness will resonate in our lives for years to come. Know your family's well taken care of. And Nancy and the entire Shupe family, please know you will all always be cherished members of our fire department family. May God bless you all. Thank you.
Good morning. You know, I look at the picture of Paul here, and I've never known him without a smile. Isn't that great? That's one of the greatest smiles I ever had in the experience of my life. I'm really honored and humbled to say a few words about Paul, and especially this special time. You know, as we gather to think about the life of engineer Paul Shupe, I want to share something that's very close to my heart. For many years, I carried a passion project, a vision to create a firefighter memorial for the city of Mesa. The vision was born out of deep respect I hold for the men and women like Paul, who serve with courage, compassion, and unwavering dedication. I'm so grateful to say that this memorial is now complete. It stands as a permanent place of remembrance, a place where stories of sacrifice are never lost, where families like yours can come and feel the presence of the fire service family that will always surround you. Paul's passing reminds us of why this memorial matters so deeply. He gave so much in his 20-plus years with Mesa Fire and Medical. He showed the same strength and dignity that defined his career. He was a devoted husband, a loving father, a brother, and a mentor to so many in the fire service. While words can never ease the weight of this loss, Nancy, Gilbert, Andrew, Bailey, and Gabe, I hope you find comfort in knowing that Paul's legacy will forever be etched into the fabric of our Mesa community. Every time when someone visits the memorial, they will see his name, remember his service, and know that he is honored, not just today, but always. On behalf of myself, the Mesa City Council, our Mesa leadership, and the entire city, from our hearts to yours, I want to say thank you for sharing Paul with us. His courage and kindness will live forever. He touched so many of us, and because of his memory, generations to come will know of his legacy. Paul, we honor you. Nancy and family, we love you. You will always be in our hearts. Thank you.
We'll now be pleased to hear some remarks from Captains Sergio Romo, Scott Figgins, and then Sam Frazier.
Morning, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sergio Romo, Captain of the Mesa Fire Medical Department. I had the honor and I was humbled to be asked to speak, and not behalf of Paul, but some of my experiences I had with Paul. We all have experiences with our crew members sometimes that not everybody ever knows about, but experiences that make us stronger in our career. So Nancy, thank you for letting me talk, and to the family, I want you to know who Paul was to me. Out of all the history me and Paul had when it comes to the things that we've had experiences, whether it be good calls or bad calls, it was very, very hard for me to pick and going through my memory of things that have happened. But there was two that really stand out, and I'm gonna try to get through the first one as best I can, but for the guys from our department, I really want you to know who Paul was and things that he did in the background that nobody really knows about. We had a call, engine 209 had a pediatric code south of the 60 from Station 9. And at that time, it was very common to set up LZs, which is landing zones for helicopters because of the distance to the hospital. So Ladder 209, which me and Paul were a part of, were dispatched with Tony Robledo and John Ferris to go lay up an LZ. So en route there, engine 209 called our ladder and advised them that they needed to drop me off on scene because it was only Spanish speaking only. I remember Tony looking back at me and kind of giving me a nod like, dude, you ready for this? And I said, yes. I said, drop me off. And Paul reached over and just squeezed my leg real quick because knowing that I was about to be exposed to something that we were hoping not to. For those of you who've experienced this, we know what it's like. So as we pull up on scene, I look over and Captain Heyer, Steve Heyer, and his crew were working hard on this 4-year-old on the sidewalk. The parents were panicking to where they brought the patient out. When I got off on scene, I jumped off, looked at Captain, and I said, what do you need from me? And he goes, I need you to get information from the parents. I never looked at the child because I didn't want to. I didn't want to have that memory in my head, so I jumped quickly to the parents. And we all know when you talk to the parents, it's very, very hard, and understandably so because they're panicking. And PD was doing a great job in trying to keep them at bay so that we could work on them. When I got to the family, immediately they started pulling at my shirt, yelling at me and asking me to please let them hold their kid. So I kept as calm as I could, and I explained to them that we needed the space to work and that our guys were doing the best that they could, and that our guys were good. So having that information, when I came back, I started talking to the captain, and at the same time, they were loading the child onto the ambo. And as they were doing that, I still don't know to this day how it happened, but we get mixed up in crews sometimes, and next thing I know, I'm giving the captain the information, but I'm also doing compressions now into the ambo. They shut the doors, and that's when it hit me that I was like, oh, I'm the one doing compressions now. And I gave the information to the captain, and as I'm doing compressions and we take off to the LZ, the captain starts repeating what I told him about the child. And he says, copy. He's like, he's 4 years old. I said, yes. And it hit me. I was like, my son at that time was 5. And he said, okay. He goes, he has severe asthma. And I said, yes, he does. And my son also at that time had severe asthma. And he said, copy, any other information? And I said, no. Right at that moment, I looked down and I realized when I saw this child that this child had the same skin complexion as my son. He had the same mouth as my son. He had the same nose as my son. And his hair was light brown, just like my son's was at that time. And it hit me where I was in my head. I was like, I am doing compressions on my son. And I focused and I tried as best as I could, obviously. We get to the LZ, and from the LZ, we head over, and like many of you guys have, obviously as we're going from one point to the other, I'm trying to do the best I can in compressions, and we tell the guys to bring the gurney down so I can do better compressions. And we get to the air evac unit, give them the patient, and then we back out, and air evac takes off. And again, to this day, I don't know how this happened, but I ended up on the other side of the field on a bench by myself, staring out into the open, wondering what just happened. As I'm sitting there, awesome dude, he retired a while ago, Chief Flegger was there, and he put an arm, I don't know if he remembers if he was here, but he put an arm over my shoulder and said, hey, sir, are you all right? And I tried to suck it up, and I said, yes, sir, I am. And he goes, are you sure? And I started tearing up. I was like, sir, I got this. Let me just give me a quick second. And he said, no, you need to go home. He goes, go spend time with your kid. And he said, I need you to go home and take your son trick-or-treating because that day was Halloween. It was one of the hardest nights of my life because of the fact that, I was taking my son trick-or-treating, and the whole time I kept thinking that there was a family that was not taking their son trick-or-treating. Paul knew how hard this hit me. Fast forward to Christmas, Paul and Nancy gave us this great gift of a book that has a photo album in it. And it had all the memories of that year, whether it be our guys at the station, memories that we shared, things that calls that we went on. And I was excited because it was awesome. I'm looking through this thing, and Paul's next to me, and I'm looking at this, and sure enough, I opened up a page, turned the page, and the picture, there's a picture there. I don't know who took the picture, but it was from far away, and it's a picture of me doing compressions on this child to the helicopter. And I looked at it, and all those memories came back, and it hit me hard, and I'm like, what? And I turned the next page, and it's me, the crew walking back, and my head is obviously hanging low and walking behind the gurney. And it threw me back, and tears started coming at me. I know Paul saw me. I didn't realize this. And I excused myself in front of everybody, trying to play it off, and I went to the bathroom. And I started splashing water in my face, and Paul, without me knowing, followed me to the bathroom. And he looked at me and he said, bro, are you okay? And I looked at him and I said, Paul, why would you put this in this book? And I'm never gonna forget this until this day, man. I remember this. He looked at me and he goes, Serge, because I'm freaking proud of you. We knew you were gonna get off on that call. I squeezed your leg because of the fact that, dude, I know it was gonna be hard for you, but I was freaking proud of you for getting off. Any of us would have done it. But just hearing it felt good. But what really got to me, he said, but what really made me proud, and I need you to understand this, the reason why I put you in that book is because you didn't have to do compressions, but you did, dude. In our profession, he said, we don't have to, but we do. There's many times from that point in my career that Paul has come up in my mind, and I remind myself, like, we don't have to, but we do. When the banners were made of Paul Shupe saying, Paul Strong, I didn't really see Paul as in strong, as in fighting cancer, because we know he's strong. What I saw was what he did all the way to that point. Shupe was already freaking strong. He dealt with a lot, and he worked through it a lot. And that's one of those things that I reminded myself and remind you guys who Shupe was. Shupe strong, it's firefighter strong, medic strong, EMT strong, PD strong. I want you guys to know out there, that's who Paul was. He did that on purpose because he knew that I needed it, but he wanted to remind me that I shouldn't look away from it. I should just be strong. We got this, and we're going to do it together. He gave me the biggest hug, and ever since that day, it really did change me. It made me look at things different. So thank you for sharing them with me with that, because he did teach me a lot. The next story, thank God, is more funny, but I want to get something straight with everybody here, especially with the Mesa firefighters. I've heard a story that keeps going around and around and around. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. It's the cable story, for those of you guys that know it. So I've heard so many versions of this, and I just laugh and I let it go, and I let people talk their own thing, because it's awesome how it changes. So moving forward, Paul also taught me something with this call. So ladder 209 gets dispatched for an extrication. There's a really bad accident, the bottom of the ramp of the power on the on-ramp to the 60 eastbound. So as we get there, we get assigned extrication sector. And for extrication sector, we had a patient that needed mechanically extricated. So we do our job, we get told to mechanically extricate, we get there, we notice that pretty much all we really need to do, really mangled, but just pop a door. So I get off, Paul says, hey, go ahead and grab the spreaders. I'm gonna go and start securing hazards. Hazards mean cutting the cables from the batteries, just in case the airbags don't go off, etc. So he takes off, and I start doing my job. We're pretty much done. I back out. My back is facing towards the ramp, towards power, over the overpass. And Paul comes up to me and puts shoulder to shoulder, and he's really quiet, whispering, like if anybody can hear us on the freeway. He says, hey, I screwed up. And I look over at him, and he's leaning over this way, and I'm like, what do you mean you screwed up? He's like, I really screwed up. I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? I'm looking around. I'm like, we got an all clear in the vehicles. We secured hazards. What are you talking about? He goes, you see that car up there? And he's literally doing this. He's like, you see that car up there? And I'm like, what car? And I'm looking around, and in the immediate area, there's 2 vehicles that are heavily damaged and nothing else but cars that weren't in the accident. And I'm like, which one? He goes, that white one up there. And I look way up on the ramp on top, there's a car that's to the side of a witness that saw the accident, that was giving a witness statement. And I was like, that white car? And he goes, yeah, that one right there. And I'm like, what about it? He goes, I cut the cable. I'm like, oh my God. And I look over, I look at him, and I just started laughing immediately. And I was like, there's no way, Paul, there's no way. And I was like, dude, what were you thinking? And he literally goes, I don't know. He's like, dude, he goes, I got so focused, and I just went on the way, I just went, doot, 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 doot. And so I start laughing, and I'm like, well, dude, it is what it is now. I was like, let's go tell our captain. At that time, we had acting captain. So we walk up to our captain, and I was like, I look at Shupe, and Shupe just stays quiet. I'm like, hey, this is what happened. This is the cable that was cut. And the captain literally doesn't say anything to us. He has his radio in his hand, and just kind of like, and just walks off. So I look at Shupe. Shupe looks at me, kind of does one of these, and I'm like, let's go tell Chief. So at that time, we had, again, awesome people, man. Kurt Dana is BSO, and Paul Bourgeois is a BC. And we walk up to the window, and I knock on the window, and of course, they're like, bzzz, on the BSO side, and good old Captain Dana looks at us, and he goes, what's going on, fellas? And I was like, well, dude, it's kind of funny. I was like, you see that car back there? And they both, in the respective rear mirrors, look over, and they're like, which one? It's like that white car up there. And they're like, yeah, what about it? He goes, we cut the cable on it. And they started laughing so hard. And I remember the most is Kurt Dana, a funny dude. We start laughing. They don't say anything, and all we hear is, he rolls it up, and I look at Paul, and I put my arm over him. I was like, I think we're going to be okay, dude. You know what I mean? But after that, obviously, they rolled the window back down, and yes, we ended up paying for that cable. But luckily, the chick who was driving the female who was driving the vehicle, her dad was a mechanic, and he was on his way already with the cable, but we did pay for it. But what I learned from that call, it was awesome because even till this day, this is back in maybe 2000, Kurt, is that you? That's Kurt right there. It was back in maybe 2008, 2009. Even to this day, I hear this story pop up, but it's changed so much and I just let it go. Even till last night on the kitchen table at Station 1, it came up again. And I had to kind of let it go because it makes me happy. But the biggest thing I got from that as well is the humility that Paul had. He's one of those guys, and he was one of those guys that things would happen and he would just admit to it like that. If we could have firefighters, and just in general, just the human public, to be able to be as strong as Paul was and as humble as Paul was, it'd be a perfect society. I really do believe that. And it's just one of those things I wanted to make sure that I shared those two stories with you. I could keep going, but I'm not going to. Obviously, I got time limit here. But I just wanted to share, obviously, at the end of the day, just remember who Paul was when he came to the strength, and remember who Paul is when it comes to humility. Because he did admit to it immediately, and he fixed it. So at the end of the day, I think we could all learn something. So thank you. Thank you, Nancy. Love you. Thank you.
Good morning. So I actually have a variation of that story already built into my speech. And since you heard it from the person who was on scene, I'll kind of brush over that. We're all here today to remember engineer, paramedic Paul Shupe, a husband, a father, a brother in the fire service, most of all, a man who truly understood what it meant to be family. I had the privilege of going to paramedic school with Paul. And there's plenty of stories that I could tell you, but I think we're going to reserve it to the family, because some of those are not quite PG or PG-13. The Mesa Fire Medical Department, like the fire service, and we have many people from around the valley representing other fire departments, we're built on family values. That's really what attracts people to the fire service. We laugh together, sometimes cry together. We may disagree here and there, certainly on politics. We pick each other up when we are down, that's for sure. But most of all, we support one another when it matters most. And that's what we did with Paul. I still remember that night when Paul called me. He was out back. He was holding burgers in front of a grill that wasn't on, waving his hand over the grill. Now, I wasn't there. I had just walked in the door from my own shift. Paul had just gotten home from overtime. And he called me and he said, "Scott, I need help." And he was slurring his words. Shame on me, but I immediately assumed that Paul was intoxicated, and he was not. To which I asked a second time, "Are you sure you're not drinking? Because you're slurring your words pretty profoundly." He said, "No." And I said, "Well, then you're having a stroke. And I don't know why you're calling me, because you should be calling 911. To which I know we have some alarm room folks in here. I ended up calling our alarm room supervisor. We actually sent 2 units. And most of the family knows how the rest of the story goes. We knew that that night was going to change a lot. He was rushed to the hospital and later diagnosed with occupational brain cancer. But make no mistake, from that moment on, from chemo to radiation to the therapy, everything in between, Paul faced every challenge head on. He never lost hope. He never gave up. Perhaps most notably, he remained remarkably positive. In fact, when we were trying to get last wishes out of him, just the word last wishes had such a negative connotation, he didn't even want us to talk to him about it. But his positivity has inspired so many people in this room, myself included. And he still does. And almost daily, in fact, listening to his wildly vivid stories that brought us all together as all of our fire trucks and people, personnel getting off shift, family and friends would come over. Thank you, Nancy, for being so kind to allow us into your home at all hours of the day. Well, he would tell these stories, and he would tell them often, he would tell them frequently. And ironically enough, Serge, I don't know where you went. he was the one that manipulated his own stories. I mean, you heard him for like day one, and then week 3, it's a completely different story. And there's people that didn't even exist in the fire service that were on the scene. So with that said, he told us some good stories. He told us about him being a red shirt ride-along. That day, he pulled out a screwdriver to try to do a pressure point on somebody. And while that person was struggling, he ended up puncturing that person. We call it, he shanked somebody. So for everybody in the room, Chief Camelli included, don't worry, not to worry at all. Statute of limitations has long passed. He also spoke of the time that the landscaper blew a bunch of debris in his Ford Expedition. We were sitting there, and while he could barely stand, he had to get up. Remember, Nancy? He had to stand to show that he grabbed that blower from the landscaper and threw it as far as humanly possible. Not to worry, because he did apologize after the landscaper went and got his blower and blew the debris out of the Ford Expedition. Obviously, it still worked. Then there's a time that Paul and his brother Dirk were in the back of the truck with a camper shell, and they had eaten all but one of the 50 pieces of banana-flavored bubble gum. Dirk, you remember this? Yep. So this is where some of the stories started to get twisted, but nonetheless, here's how it went. Paul tells Dirk, if you eat the last piece, meaning it's for Paul, then Paul was going to slug you. He was going to slug Dirk. Dirk ate the last piece. And true to his word, Paul slugged him. No need to worry, because true to Paul's heart, he's been apologetic ever since. And Dirk's right here, smiling, so it couldn't have hurt that much. And how about the time Paul was assigned to ladder 209 and cut the cables? Well, I've got this whole amazing story, and I won't even get into it. But nonetheless, he cut the cables, and no need to worry, because Paul apologized and never did it again. And while these stories make us laugh, they also remind us of exactly who Paul was. He was genuine, loyal, dedicated, and passionate. Paul was also full of love. He truly loved the fire service. He loved being an engineer, and he loved teaching at MCC. But above all else, he loved his family. His wife, Nancy, who stood by his side for 30 years. His 4 amazing children, Gilbert, Andrew, Bailey, Gabe. You guys were his pride and joy. His siblings, his parents, his brothers and sisters in the fire service. He lived every single day with a mix of dedication, humor, and heart, and he loved every single one of you. And his legacy isn't just about the 20 years in the fire service, the 20 years that he gave the Mesa Fire Medical Department, or the 23 years that he had roughly with the city of Mesa. It's in the lives that he touched, the friendships he built, and the way he made us laugh, even when times were hard. So today, even through our grief, we are able to share his story and smile, because that's what Paul would want, to be remembered not just for his service and sacrifice, but for his humor, his heart, and the love he gave so freely. And if you knew Paul, I think you would agree that if he was standing here with us right now, he would likely be grinning, giving a thumbs up, and saying, very nice, very nice. And if he could give us a few words, last reminders, he would likely say, for starters, stop stabbing everyone for a blood sugar unless you absolutely need to, because it hurts like the dickens. He would say, everything works great, in theory. Truly something Paul loved to say. He would say, document exposures, just like Chief Camelli said. A huge movement. This is why we have the documentation delights, the little cookies that Bailey, by the way, slaved over to make over 500 cookies for you all after service. He would also remind us to take care of our families and each other. Oh, and to give hugs. Lastly, I think he would make one simple request for all of us, that we take care of his family, because they're part of this fire service family. that we take care of his family the same way he took care of so many of us. So to Paul, rest easy, brother. We'll take it from here. I'm also going to be, I guess, doing the firefighter prayer here. Sam is, I don't know where Sam Fraser is, but he said it was going to be much easier for me to do it since I'm already up here. So here's a firefighter prayer, something that is known to many of us in this room. When I am called to duty, God, whenever flames may rage, give me the strength to save some life, whatever be its age. Help me to embrace a little child before it is too late, or some older person from the horror of that fate. Enable me to be alert and to hear the weakest shout, and quickly and efficiently to put the fire out. I want to fill my calling and give the best in me, to guard my neighbor and protect his property. And if according to your will, I have to lose my life, please bless with your protecting hand my children and my wife. Thank you.
Thank you, dear friends and brothers. That's just tremendous. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. We'll now have opportunity to hear from Dirk and Gabriel Shupe. And so Dirk, come on up, please. Following the Shupes and their thoughts. Glad to have you up here. Thank you so much. Following the Shupes' thoughts, we'll then have some ceremonial celebration that will take place. Thank you.
Thanks for all the words that have been spoken. I love to continue to learn about my brother. Paul Shupe was born May 10th, 1967, to Larry and Barbara Shupe in Hamer, Idaho. He's survived by his sisters Reagan. There's 7 of us. Sister Reagan, myself, Dan, Katrina, Wade, and Rachel. Paul came out of the womb, and he was ready to get to work. And he didn't stop until last Monday. At 1.5 years old, Paul was walking down the lane looking for his dad driving the combine so that he could go out and help on the farm. In Hamer, Paul loved to move, brand, and work the cattle, and found every opportunity he could to help out his dad, his grandpa, and his uncles with anything and everything that they would let him help with. He listened and learned from everything that his dad said, and he proved that at about 4 years old when he was racing his little cars and he crashed 2 of them together. And he called the car a son of a bee. Shocked, our mom asked where he had heard such foul language. And he said, "That's what Dad calls the dogs." So he listened, he learned. Paul learned to drive by helping move irrigation pipes out in the farm. And he learned to drive at about 5 years old. And he loved it then. He loved it up until the last. And it sort of formed his passion and love for racing cars and teaching drivers. Our parents moved to the U.S. Sheep Experimental Station about an hour north of Hamer, where they grew up. Lived on a farm until Paul was about 15 years old. It was a kid's dream to live on about 1,000 acres or thousands of acres and to get to do all the things that a young boy would love to do. Paul loved to work with his dad, shoot guns, go camping, hunt rock chucks, ride his horse Firecracker and motorcycles, and in the wintertime, his Radio Flyer sled and snowmobiles. But he also took time to teach his brothers and sisters how to do all those things. And we are grateful for the teacher that he was to us. It was at the sheep station that we met the Campbell family and unofficially adopted their kids. They've been our brother and sister since then, and we're grateful to have them here with us today. Paul started saving lives at a pretty early age, often playing Charlie's Angels, I imagine the blonde one, running around with Reagan and Johnny and Tina Doyle. As he grew up in a small conservative community with very like-minded people, I thought Paul was a rebel on the highway to hell when he showed me his new and secret AC/DC album. He loved Kiss, Judas Priest, Ozzy Osbourne, and just about every other band then that my mother would hate. At 15 years old, we moved to Las Cruces, New Mexico. That's where Paul embraced the big city life. Being a 6-foot-ish, he's like 5'11", blonde, and a new kid in town, Paul was instantly popular, joined the wrestling team, cruised El Paseo, found parties in the desert, and looked for any opportunity he could have to have fun. Paul even had a short stint, as we heard, as a male model for the Mesa Valley Mall Dillards. He wore a white Miami Vice suit, and he had his feather blonde hair in full effect. During high school, when summer came, Paul would run up to Idaho and spend the summers working on my grandpa's ranch, enjoying teenage freedoms, rodeos, and living his very best life. Paul made some incredible friends in Las Cruces. They've stayed close right up until the end, and we're so grateful to have them here today with us as well. Soon after high school, Paul packed up and moved to Tempe, where he started his storied Arizona life. Paul loved to have fun, and fun costs money. So he got a job. We all knew how to work, and he's been working since a kid. But as we reflected on the man that Paul's become, the man that most of you have gotten to know, he learned those things over time. So a short list of the myriad of things that Paul has done since most of you have known him. He worked at Peter Piper Pizza, at Radio Shack, the movie theater, Checker Auto Parts, a Japanese restaurant. He was a pecan farmer, a cowhand, a milk truck driver like his grandpa used to do. He was a bartender, worked at the art gallery, was a home health care provider, a college teacher, a CPR instructor, and a firefighter. He picked up new talents and friends everywhere he went. I know most of you know Paul to be a kind, loving, compassionate, and helpful, and he's so much more. He was all of those things, but Paul was also a scrapper, part bully, part fiercely protective of those that he loved. This week, as brothers and sisters, we shared some laughs about the feisty side of Paul that we all knew. I remember being about 8 years old in Idaho, and Paul was downstairs in his room, laying on the floor, bench pressing, more weight than he should have been. And the barbell came down on his chest, and it rolled up and positioned itself on his neck, and he couldn't get it off. So he was screaming top of his lungs for me to come rescue him, and I did. But in that moment, I stood over him on the barbell, and I said to him, Paul, I'm going to help you take this off, but from now on, you got to promise you're going to be a lot nicer to me. He promised, and I foolishly believed him. I can tell you it didn't really end well after that, but he promised. Paul knew how to work hard. We also joked this week that as Paul needed to fund his extravagant teenage lifestyle, Miami Vice suits and feathered hair, he often borrowed money from us for some of his weekend fun. So I'm hoping that there's some money from my paper route in the will, maybe with some interest. A lot of you know Paul as a teacher, an instructor, and I hear that he was really good at it. I'd say he evolved into becoming a great teacher. When he let me tag along for my first ski trip ever, he took me to the top of the mountain, helped me put my skis on, said, this is how you snowplow, don't do it, we'll see you at the bottom at 4. I figured it out, but he was always great to take us along and let us do things with him. Paul loved dogs, and a lot of you have met Moose and Max over the last year or so. I remember when Paul got his first dog, Sam. He told me that he needed to get a dog so that he could raise it and know that he could be patient with it before deciding that he could have kids. The teeth marks in his hand proved that he fought hard to make that relationship work. But it did work. He met Nancy. And they had 4 beautiful and amazing kids together. Your dad is very, very proud of all of you. And he wanted all to know all the time. Paul loved Nancy and the kids so much that he would often call and tell me stories about the things that he had done, ways that they'd impressed him. But Paul usually knew where his kids were and where I was because he was tracking us all on his phone all the time. I'm gonna miss his random phone calls and texts about my travels, calling me in the middle of the evening while I'm at a work dinner to say, "How's the pizza in Chicago?" I'd be like, "It's good, man, but having dinner with a client. Can I call you later?" Or he'd call me and say, or he'd text me and say, "I see you're at a rest area. Number 1 or number 2?" Paul was so great as the older brother. He carried both the privilege and the pressure of keeping us all together. He pushed for us to get organized and come together for family reunions. He planned trips with Nancy and my parents to get together to continue to build those bonds. And the more he strived, and he just never stopped striving to keep us together despite all the distance between us. Last October, we all learned that Paul had brain cancer, and everyone rallied. For the past 11 months, Nancy has rarely left Paul's side, providing unprecedented love and support for our brother. We love you, Nancy, today, forever, and we will continue to love and support you forever. For Paul, a cancer diagnosis meant that the work had to continue. He had to continue fighting cancer. He had to continue baking cookies to document delights, to make sure that this doesn't happen to others. So to me, who is Paul Shupe? He's a son, a friend, a mentor, a teacher, a husband, a firefighter, a brother to many, and my hero. Growing up with Paul, he had 7 brothers and sisters, plus our adopted Campbell family. And for the first 51 years of my life, I believed that to be a fact. Last year, when Paul found out that he had cancer, I learned that he had hundreds of brothers and sisters. Our family has witnessed the incredible care, love, and support that he has received in this past year from all of you. It has been amazing, and we thank you and are so grateful for each and every one of you. And Paul, thanks for the letters and the penthouse view. I love you and I miss you already.
So I don't think an hour is long enough to talk about my dad and truly tell everyone who he was, but I will try my best in the 5 minutes that I do have. Before I start, there's a couple stories that came to mind as I heard Dirk and Kameli and Figgins talk. The first being, my dad always had a way of saying that he had 3 sons. The first being Sam, the next being Gilbert, and the third being Andrew, or 3 first sons, I should say. And he truly did learn patience and love from Sam. I never met him, but I hear he was a good guy. I'd then like to say that somewhere along the tables behind all of us, there's a bucket of papers, and all of those papers have little templates for you guys to figure out and put stories about my dad. A favorite story, how you met the guy, whatever you really feel, but me, my siblings, and plenty of other people in this room have yet to know a lot about my dad. And I have kids that are going to be here at some point that would love to know their grandpa. Another thing that came to mind was the first time I ever saw my dad cry, which is a crazy story because we were just sitting at an airport and there was absolutely nothing to warrant this. We were actually in Idaho Falls about to visit our lovely grandparents, or his lovely parents. And I looked over, and I think I was just playing on my phone, doing absolutely nothing relevant. I just see tears streaming down my dad's face. And I was kind of worried, so I checked in with the guy, and I said, "Hey, why are you crying?" And I realized as I asked that over in the distance, there was a little infant crying in their mother's arms. And he looked, and he pointed, and he said, "That cry just means that they're breathing." And that was the first time in my life that I saw my dad cry. But it was also the first time in my life that I really realized the things that he has seen and gone through as a firefighter and a paramedic. So I love and empathize with all of you for that. Crying was something that my dad did a lot over the past couple months, but I want to emphasize that 99 out of 100 times it was because of raw appreciation and gratitude for all that you did for the guy. Every time he cried, he told the same story about Sock Rider, which I'm sure many of you know the name. But he would say something along the lines of, "My testosterone is going down and my estrogen is going up, and that's what causes the faucet to keep running." So if I cry during this, just know I'll be thinking of that story. The last time I talked to my dad was Wednesday, September 24th. The last thing he said to me was, "I love you, be careful." On that same day, he cracked his last joke to me. The opportunity came when I walked back into the room, stating, "I'm back." He replied, "Hi, back," and smiled. He thought it was funny, and I did too. Ever since I was a kid, my dad always said he wanted to live to be 100, so he could blow the candles out and croak right then and there. For 11 months, though, it did break my heart knowing that that wouldn't be the case. And I wish I could credit someone. They know who they are, but they helped me and my family make an incredible perspective shift not too long ago. My dad did live to be 100. He lived 100 years worth of life in 58. 150 years if we're being realistic. Dirk went into it, Kameli went into it, but he was a rancher, a milkman, pecan farmer, Dillard's model, art director, photography teacher, fireman, race car driver, cancer fighter. You truly can't make it up. If there's any silver lining in all of this, it's that my family and I have had the pleasure of meeting my dad all over again through all of you. I never would have known the greatness of my father's fire family without seeing it firsthand. Truly, there was a day and age where I was worried that my dad was lonely, which he might have been, but only when he was at home with us. Haha, just kidding. At every step, I was amazed at the support for my father, not out of obligation, but genuine love that my father fostered through his outreach and impact within the department. You were all part of my father's backbone, and I can't express enough gratitude for it. In a way, he got to attend his own funeral. For the past 11 months, they have been filled with nothing but love, generosity, fellowship, and community. After his second diagnosis in July, the visitors never stopped thanks to Scott. He was constantly surrounded by fire buddies and students, all reminiscing on how much my dad meant to them. My dad's eyes were brighter, and for the first time in his life, I think he truly understood the greatness that he brought upon this world. My dad's story is not one of tragedy, but a story of strength, resilience, dignity, love, family, selflessness, courage, and bravery in the face of challenge. 21 years was not long enough, but it was a privilege nonetheless. I love my dad. I know he will always be with me. While I'm here and I have the platform and audience, I would like to echo some of my father's most important messages. First, to all of my first responders, document, document, document your exposures. The cookies are a bonus, and although they were my dad's favorite part, please let the message stay clear. Second, 10 seconds of your time and kindness is 10 minutes of someone else's life. Lend a hand, compliment freely, tell someone just how much they meant to you, and watch them light up. To all of the fathers in the crowd, give your kid the time of day. Go get lunch. No more handshakes. Give the kid a hug. Let your guard down. To all of the sons in the crowd, give your old man some grace. Sergio's story was one of many. A son is born to butt heads with his father. It's hard, I know the feeling. I was a son once too. And to Letta and to everyone else, enjoy your time here while you're here. No grudges, don't hold on to the little things. Live life to its fullest, because I know my dad did. The last thing I said to my dad was, everything I do, I will be doing it for you. So please excuse me, I've got some pretty big boots to fill. Thank you.
How I wish you were here. We're just two lost souls swimming in a fishbowl, year after year, running over the same old ground, and how we found the same old fears. Wish you were here.
Loves to do, his passion to do it, and we're grateful that NASCAR was able to do this for Paul.
Show you a little love.
Dude, this is beyond love. As you guys always do, as fire departments. Well, thank you.
Paul Shupe has been with the fire department for 20 plus years, and he has always been an amazing employee for us. And I don't even want to say employee, he's been a family member to everybody. This is one small way that Paul can see the love. Something he loves to do, his passion to do it, and we're grateful that NASCAR was able to do this for Paul.
What is your favorite family vacation?
Just a simple camp trips. Yellowstone, Island Park.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was just nothing more than the backyard doing s'mores. I went on a lot of camp trips with family, and they were always as good, if not better, than the expensive ones. But I gotta say that even though I didn't get to participate like I expected I was going to, knowing my grandsons got to do everything on their bucket list, that made this trip wonderful.
How long will I love you? As long as stars are above you, and longer if I can. How long will I need you? As long as the seasons need to follow their plan. How long will I be with you? As long as the sea is bound to wash upon the sand. How long will I want you? As long as you want me to, and longer by far. How long will I hold you? told you. As long as you can. How long will I give to you? As long as I live through you. However long you say. How long will I love you? As long as stars are above you. And longer if I may. How long will I love you? As long as stars are above you.
Scotty, you'll be hard pressed in your life to ever find somebody who can love his wife more than me.
Well, that's a great thing, Paul. You know that. That's a great thing.
And she knows it.
I do know it.
You may have noticed the ribbons attached to our Honor Guard flag. The ribbon is not just a decoration, it is a solemn symbol of remembrance and respect. It represents the men and women who have made the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty. Each time a member of our department passes in the line of duty, a ribbon is placed on this flag in their honor. It stays with us from ceremony to ceremony, from post to post, serving as a constant reminder of the price they paid and the promise we make to never forget them. This ribbon travels with us to every Honor Guard event. It reminds us of why we stand, why we serve, and who we carry in our hearts. To the fallen, the ribbon says, "You are not forgotten. We carry your memory with us always."
The men and women of today's fire service are confronted with a more dangerous work environment than ever before. We are forced to continually change our strategies and tactics to accomplish our tasks. Our methods may change, but our goals remain the same as they were in the past, to save lives and protect property, sometimes at a terrible cost. This is what we do. This is our chosen profession. This is the tradition of the firefighter. The fire service of today is ever-changing, but it is steeped in traditions 200 years old. One such tradition is the sounding of the bell. It was the bell that signaled the start of duty, and through the days and nights, each alarm was sounded by a bell. It called them to fight fires and to place their lives in jeopardy for the good of their fellow man. And when the fire was out and the alarm had been completed, it was the bell that signaled its end. When a firefighter died in the line of duty, paying the supreme sacrifice, it's the mournful toll of the bell that solemnly announced a comrade's passing. We seek strong words and symbols that give us a better understanding of our feelings when we experience a loss. And we use these words and symbols to reflect the devotion our brothers and sisters had for their duties. The sounding of the bell, a special signal of 3 rings, 3 times each, represented the end of their duties and they were returning to quarters. All uniformed personnel, Please rise. And now, for Engineer Paul Shupe, who has completed his tasks, his duties well done, he has given his best. For our fallen brother, his last alarm, he has gone home. Present arms. Order, arms.
Mesa Regional Dispatch Center to Engineer Paramedic Paul Shupe, badge number 15740. Mesa Regional Dispatch Center to Engineer Paramedic Paul Shupe, badge number 15740. Mesa Regional Dispatch Center to Engineer Paramedic Paul Shupe, badge number 15740. The citizens of Mesa and surrounding communities are in debt for your 22 years of dedicated service with the Mesa Fire and Medical Department. This is your final assignment. Respond to 965 East Germain Road, Gilbert, Arizona, where your final duty will be to watch over your family, friends, and fellow firefighters. Mesa Fire and Medical Department Engineer Paramedic Paul Shupe, your earthly duties are complete. May you rest in peace. Mesa Regional Dispatch Center, clear.
Nancy, these don't get easier. I'm so grateful for each one of you being here today. You know, we've come together in great reverence. We've laughed together. We've cried together. We mourned together. And I'll deviate from my written remarks for a few moments. You know, my dear brothers and sisters, each one of you, we're all children of a loving God. He is our Father. We were once with Him. We were in His presence. We came to this mortal experience because we agreed to do so. We agreed to go through sorrow, trial, tribulation, difficulties, to cause us to turn back and look at Him and to speak to Him, because He is going to help us all get through this life, because His joy is not so much the sorrows of which it is that we all have to go through, but that's that we would exercise faith and that we would turn to Him. Don't forget that you are a son or daughter of a loving God, and that we have the privilege of returning to be with Him again one day. Paul is right where he needs to be. He's had that embrace, and he is preparing for the rest of us to be received in that great eternal realm where we have the privilege of being with our loving Heavenly Father. You know, Paul's always remembered as being one that's kind, compassionate, considerate, even on those late night calls. As I have visited with so many of other brothers and sisters, our firefighters that have served with him, Paul was the kind of man that didn't complain when he got up in the middle of the night. He didn't see the differences in people. We're living in a very ever-changing world. The environment in which it is that we live is becoming more and more divisive, it seems, when we hear the news and what's happening. And we see the travesty that's happening in the lives of so many people. Yet, what brings us all together is compassion, is hope. Our source of peace is true. It's real. It's there. But we must, as a people, as sons and daughters of God, we must unify and find joy and happiness as we come together. That is what's going to help us the most. You know, Nancy, one of the things I just to share a few thoughts with you from the family, a proclamation to the world, and it declares this: All human beings, male and female, are created in the image of God. Each is a beloved spirit son or daughter of heavenly parents, and as such, each has a divine nature and destiny. Now, this is true of Paul. This is true of you. It's true of your family. It's true of each and every one of us that are here in the sound of my voice. And even those that cannot yet hear, we are all sons and daughters, brothers and sisters. Christ promised this, because I live, ye shall live also. And Christ prepared the way for each one of us. Another witness declared this, the grave hath no victory, and the sting of death is swallowed up in Christ. Where it is that we can find our greatest joy. I take comfort, and Nancy, I pray you do as well, in your covenant relationship that you have with Paul. For your family is eternal. It will not be until death do you part. That is an eternal relationship that you have entered into with God. I am so grateful to know that. Live for that and know that all of us are here for you. You know, friends, family, brothers and sisters, my fellow firefighters, I'm grateful for who you are and all that you accomplish. Please know that each one of you bring peace to others. Counsel I give to each one of our first responders is this. Take time today to call each and every one of your children. If all of your children are at home, gather them around you and spend time with them. When is the last time you played a board game, a card game, or just visited with your children? And if you have those that are married and out of the house, or just out of the house at all, would you pick up the phone and give them a call? And just give an expression of love from you to them. Because family is most important. Men, date your wives. Wives, let your husbands date you. Do that, and you'll find greater joy as you live life. A poem. When fire raged and shadows grew, Paul's heart was steady, strong, and true. With fearless eyes, he dropped down low, and down the hallway chose to go. He turned in motion, firm and yet kind, and those behind found strength in mind. The blaze was beaten, the home restored, by men united, by courage poured. The heat was fierce, the night was long, yet Paul's resolve kept others strong. They did not falter, did not flee, for where he stood, they longed to be. But courage wears a gentler face, not only fire, but quiet grace. Paul's steady hand, his healing word, were oft the sweetest ever heard. Beside the broken, frail or small, he knelt in love and gave his all. No act too simple, soul too lost, for Paul would serve and count the cost. Now heaven calls, his work complete. He walks on streets of gold with peace. The trump has sounded, duty done. His crown of honor now begun. Yet love remains, it does not cease. Beyond the veil awaits sweet peace. And Nancy, though your tears may flow, this covenant bond will only grow. No flame, no grave, no shadowed night can sever bonds sealed in God's light. And when that final day shall rise, you'll see Paul standing in your eyes, hand in hand restored once more, together on that shining shore, where no more sorrow, no more pain, but endless joy with Christ will reign. Christ spoke these words, and they are timeless. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. And to every soul who has ever feared death, the witness is sure. O death, where is thy sting? O grave, where is thy victory? Christ is the light and the life of the world, a light that is endless, that can never be darkened. That is the peace that we find in Paul. Paul lived that life. We are grateful for all that he has done. My brothers and sisters, I testify that it is through our Savior Jesus Christ that we will find that peace, for he has broken the bands of death, and each one of us will have the privilege of being restored of soul and body. We will have the eternities of which it is that we will find joy. Bind yourselves together, give a hug, shed a tear, express your love and your concern for one another. Stay steadfast in all that you do. Have no fear, but walk in faith. May you feel of God's love for each and every one of you. Of these things I testify in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. We'll now have opportunity for a dismissal. I would ask that each of the community members, if you would all just remain seated until you're excused. And I'll express, we'll help you understand when that will be. But as a reminder, there is a reception that's here on campus. You'll be directed as to where to go for that. At this time, can I have all uniformed personnel please stand? And upon my dismissal of you, I would ask that you would depart out the doors through which it is that we entered, and if you would please reestablish the honor wall. Uniformed personnel, you're excused.